Look out, it's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
If you're watching Facebook Live or YouTube Live, hey, we've done this before, right, Dan? Interviewed folks in cars, and we've done some crazy stuff. Durwood Snead is in the car, and the reason being, did he say it was his first grandchild or the next what did he say? Do you remember?
Probably the latest grandchild.
The latest grandchild. So he's on his way to see the latest grandchild. But also with us is Adrian Hershey. We're going to talk about the Racial Reconciliation Project in Forsyth County. So welcome, you guys. Durwood, welcome. Okay, well, I know he's having a little bit of...
Adrian, what would Durwood say if
he would say he is so excited to be here, as am I.
Well, let me say this a little bit about Durwood, former missions pastor at North Point Community Church in Alpharetta. And he did some research about the May Crow story, a story I'd never heard before until about probably a few hours ago when I started just studying for what we're going to talk about today. And it's very fascinating what you guys are doing. Adrian, how did you get involved in this whole project? Let's go there first.
Sure. So similar to Durwood, there was I moved to Forsyth County about 17 years ago and heard some whispers about the history of Forsyth, but didn't really know a lot about it until a book was published called Blood at the Root by Patrick Phillips that shares the history of the racial history of Forsyth County and a racial expulsion of about 1,100 African-American residents of the county in 1912.
Yeah.
So that painted some more color around what these whispers were and what this history was after having some more information from that book. And similarly to Durwood as well. And just, coming to terms with that really sad, difficult history that we share as residents of this community.
Now, how long has that book been out by Patrick Phillips? Is that a book that's been out for a long, long time, or is it a short time?
No, about 10 years or so it's been out. I think it came out in 2016, 2015, so less than 10 years, actually.
Let me fill in a couple of blanks here from what now I've read, just bits and pieces, and you can help me here. May Crow was a young lady that was raped and brutalized, and several black neighbors were arrested, even though there wasn't sufficient evidence. And then the next night, the night after the event, night riders blew up every home of occupied black families. And as you mentioned, 1,100 were driven out of the land. 58 of those were landowners, and because of what's going on here with the project, there are some I guess you guys have been getting some finances together to put in place scholarships to help some of the descendants of those folks. That's, we're hearing more and more of these stories in our history, and they're all heartbreaking. It's amazing. How were you able to get people together to say, first of all, hey, this story is not a known story, at least publicly as far as we know. Mm-hmm. How did you get them together to go, okay, let's not only just know about it, let's do something about it?
Right. So after reading the book and talking with others, I can talk for Durwood since he has having problems with his communication, but he actually talked to the author, and the author said, "Oh, there's other people in the community that are interested in doing something, because you read this book, or even if you don't read the book and you understand the history, it weighs on you. Your heart breaks for what happened to these families." And just to correct a little bit. After the young woman was brutalized and passed away, there was a trial, and these men were convicted quickly. And then over the next few months, the families were forced out, but it was a very short period of time. But like you said, as Christians, we want to put our faith into action, right? That's what we're called to do. And so when you now know this information, it's hard to just sit with it and not want to do something. And so Durwood felt called. I felt called separately. We knew of each other, but didn't know each other. And so the author actually connected Durwood with a pastor at our church who Durwood already knew and I already work with. And so us and then others in the community said, what is something that would be helpful? What is something that that would seem honoring, that would be honoring to these families and acknowledge this difficult history? And so in talking to other community leaders, to people inside our local community and in our Metro Atlanta community, and even further reaching, and said, and even found some descendants of these families to say, we want to do something that's helpful. We don't want to do something that is not honoring. And so the idea of the scholarship bubbled to the surface as something that is very specific, something that people can get around and participate in, and something that would be honoring and acknowledging this history that some know but don't know what to do with, because they're like, well, it happened a long time ago. And I wasn't alive then, and so what does that mean? And so this idea was a rallying point to say, hey, we can do something. This isn't fixing anything. This isn't enough, but this is something in the right direction to say that we care. Right. That as Christians we want to share the love of Christ and say that this is not okay. And so that's how the scholarship came about.
Yeah, I can hear now. So.
Oh, Durwood can hear now. Hey,
yeah,
Durwood.
I'm so sorry. But, just to add a little bit too, as I read and researched the dark history of our county, because I've lived in this county for 33 years, but as I began researching it, and especially this whole story uncovered, and then as my wife read and I read about 1,100 people, Black people, being expelled from the county, never to return, for no reason of anything that they had ever done, our heart just broke.
Yeah.
And I remember, as Adrian said, I reached out to the author and I felt like I need to do something. And the passages that came to my mind were from James, that faith without works is dead. Mm-hmm. And I thought, now that I know about this, I just feel like I need to do something and I don't know what it is. And as Adrian mentioned, as our pastor, Adam Johnson, and then Adrian and I began talking, and then we began talking to some Black descendants of people that were expelled. And then following that, began talking to people in our community and other pastors. We all said, well, why don't we just go ahead and start doing this as volunteers? And so we launched this scholarship as 12 pastors, 12 followers of Jesus, and then invited the entire community to be on board. We wanted to make sure Jesus gets all the credit. And at the same time, we want the whole community to be part of this.
Durwood, talk about the reaction that you got from the families when they heard that you guys were going to do this.
Yeah.
Well, initially as you can imagine, they weren't sure they could trust us because we were new
Right.
people. They didn't know us. They weren't sure what our motivations are. But over time, and Adrian just did an amazing job of connecting with a number of women that are descendants and became their friends, invited them out, spent time with them, helped show some of them the land that their ancestors had owned in the county.
Wow.
And over time, we just became friends. And then they began really helping us. They realized that.
And Adrian, we'll pick up there maybe.
Yeah.
Generation.
There we go. Okay.
Right. I think the point is that building relationships is a big key to what we're trying to do, because we don't have those relationships because they were broken when these events happened. And so, and it's been an honor for me to connect with these families as well as Durwood and others to try to rebuild some of that connection to this community that they should be a part of, that this should be their home, that we should be neighbors. And so, again, it's been an honor to be able to help make some of those connections and build those relationships with these families and these wonderful people. And I think there's we've gotten to the point where we've been able to build those and that there to be some real maybe hope in the future of what was and what could be. And so that is an amazing opportunity I think that we have and we're excited about.
We're talking about the Racial Reconciliation Project, and Durwood Snead there in his car getting ready to visit the next grandchild. Congratulations. I don't know if I said that or not. Dan is actually having his first grandchild here in a few months, his daughter.
Yeah.
And so he's
Awesome.
yeah. I'm still tarrying. I'm still waiting for my my grandchildren, but that's okay. I'm not bitter at all. But congratulations, Durwood Snead and Adrian Hershey there. Adrian, maybe you can answer this. The descendants, did they pretty much know the story? Was it passed down? I mean, this is what I guess it would be 110 years ago. Did
Right.
they know that story? And how did you? I mean, obviously, you said about the reaction of non-trust, which is understandable, right? But it's a relationship thing that's really grown. But did they know about this story at all the details?
Yeah. So some know more than others, is sort of the short answer. Some of the descendants, even though it was 110 years ago, depending on the age of the person, some of them, their parents were babies. So, and some of them, these are their great grandparents. So I think depending on the generation and depending on how far away the families have moved. So a lot of the families are still in Metro Atlanta that we've connected with. We've probably connected with 30 or 40 families. But there's, what was 1,100 people 110 years ago is now, probably tens of thousands, if not 100,000 people. As we do the math on, so you had 4 kids per generation or so. And so it's been, I think, an additional opportunity as we've talked to the college age students, that they might not have known much of their family history, but it has given their family the opportunity to share that with them. And I think that is really important. Maybe wasn't the main thought of the scholarship, but has been an additional opportunity, additional benefit that the families are understanding their story and their heritage and that their resilience, even if, we wish they wouldn't have had to have gone through this, that they now understand a little bit more of their family history, and that our community has more of its community history too. We know the history of the people that stayed, but we don't know a lot of the history of the people that moved. So we're, even as a community, finding out more about where people moved and why they moved there. And so I think that is a rich history that we need to understand as well. So it's been a benefit, I think, across the board for all of us to learn more.
All right. And real quick before we have to let you go here, tell us how folks that are listening can help you guys out. Is there any way they can get involved?
Absolutely. So we have a website at www.forsyth, that's FORSYTH, scholarship.com. So that's forsythscholarship.com. It has the backstory. It has a place to learn more, resources, as well as a place to donate. We just awarded the inaugural scholarships to 9 recipients. This is launched in February. We just let them all know last week. And that's really exciting, but we feel like this is just the start. And so we are fundraising for future scholarships and future blessings and future reconciliation with both God, Jesus, and each other. So, we sure could use the help and prayer, and we would appreciate that so much.
Love that. Durwood Snead, Adrian Hershey. It's the Racial Reconciliation Project in Forsyth County. We'd love to catch up with you in a couple of months, and maybe then Durwood could be holding the grandbaby, and we could interview him right there. How cool would that be?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
We have so many questions that we'd love to know. Talk about the healing that's taking place. It's not complete. It's moving forward. And I think this is such a cool thing. Love to talk about it again. There's on the bottom of the screen, ForsythScholarship.com. If you in any way can help out, find out information, be a part of it, volunteer if they need it, whatever, right there. It's pretty amazing. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.